I look at images of country ladies stuffing their faces, tourists trapped in cliches, drunken revelers, and the jolly grim British working classes. And they all seem to be hovering uncomfortably between comedy and tragedy. There isn't a single photographer more British than this, both in the subjects he chooses for his projects and the somewhat humorous mentality he puts behind photographing them. He has photographed the working class on vacation, collected photo books to the point that he had to create his own museum to house them, and used all of it to inform others about the history, processes, trends, and cliches of photography, and to create commentary on societal issues, including identity, class, and individualism, all with a bit of satire. This is Street Smarts Volume 22, Martin Parr. For over 50 years now, I have been photographing in Britain and Ireland, and have built a comprehensive archive of my time here. This long period of photographing has earned Martin Parr the moniker Godfather of British photography. His achievements include belonging to Magnum since 1994, publishing over 40 photo books of his own work, and having that work featured in upwards of 80 exhibitions all over the world. He began his photography journey at the age of 14. Shortly thereafter, he joined a group referred to as the Young British Photographers that launched a new wave of documentary-style photography in Britain that would inform what and how he would begin to document the world. He was further informed by the photos of Joel Meyerowitz, William Eggleston, and Stephen Shore, who had created work that inspired him to permanently change from using black and white film to using color. I want the pictures to be accessible to a wider audience. I don't want people to be mystified or puzzled by what I'm doing. I want the pictures to be bright and cheerful. Well, they may not be cheerful, but certainly bright. The vibrancy of the colors that appear in his frames are a major aspect of what makes him stand out as a photographer taking snapshots of others on holiday. Martin Parr has always used the beach as a testing ground for new techniques and experiments. That appears to be as true today as it was when he started, and that has to do with the amount of incredible work he's created in seaside situations. The most well-known book of Parr's that showcases his experimentation through his early use of color, photography at beaches, and work related to societal issues and mass tourism is titled The Last Resort. These photos show the beginnings of his unique style that include photos taken with wide-angle lenses and flash that results in highly saturated images that immediately grab the viewer's attention. It includes images of New Brighton Beach taken from 1983 to 1985. At the time, underprivileged members of the working class would seek out New Brighton as an affordable vacation destination. Initially, when Parr presented an exhibition of this work in London in 1986, it was seen as being cruel and voyeuristic. But Parr claims the whole point of this project was to show issues people had to put up with, including bad weather, screaming babies, trash, and the hordes of people that all flock to these types of places at the same time, just to have a break from their day-to-day routines. I'm interested in the ambiguity and contradictions that I can see, and finding ways to articulate that through photography. It was the perfect place to show the discrepancies found in British life as Parr intended. If this formerly beautiful resort area turned modern dystopian tragedy was truly someone's last resort as a place of refuge from the woes of their everyday existence. The other intention was to show how there's a common perception that things used to be better in bygone eras. It's very easy to look back and be nostalgic, thinking that everything was better in the good old days. Well, it wasn't. It just evolves. However, those days are also what he credits with allowing this series of photos to take off. He speculated that the popularity was a byproduct of right place, right time, because the color and techniques he used stood out at the time, in contrast to most other documentary photography of that era. His own evolution as a photographer who isn't concerned with the good old days comes in the form of another beach project titled Beach Therapy that was released in 2019. For this project, Parr chose to push his techniques in a completely different direction. Instead of shooting wide, he used a 70 to 300mm lens, which caused more foreground elements to end up completely out of focus, and forced him to compose frames much differently than he typically would. Parr chose this title because photography generally is a therapeutic activity. I have this desire to explore the world, to express what I see as the good and the bad. I have a love-hate relationship with Britain, And the great thing about photography is that you can express that conundrum and ambiguity quite effectively, and have both sides of the arguments running along simultaneously. So that's really why I think it's a therapeutic process. When I reflected on the role the seaside had throughout my career, and how I've used the beach as an experimental laboratory, beach therapy seemed the perfect title. Martin Parr is widely considered one of the most well-known and successful documentary photographers in the world today. This is mostly due to the large amount of exhibitions he's held, the amount of books he's had published, and the unique style of his photos. He gained notoriety from thoughtfully considering how to be different from his photography peers. I looked around at what my colleagues were doing and asked myself, what relationship has it with what's going on? I found there was a great distortion of contemporary life. Photographers were interested only in certain things: a visually interesting place, people who were either very rich or very poor, and nostalgia. One of the largest contributing factors to his success is his choice of subject matter and how he chose to present it. Remember, I make serious photographs disguised as entertainment. That's part of my mantra. I make the picture acceptable to find the audience, but deep down, there's actually a lot going on that's not sharply written in your face. If you want to read it, you can read it. And that's what makes his photos so instantly appealing. At first glance, they're hilarious, but we can see ourselves in the ridiculous nature of tourists being tourists and other human beings interacting with the absurdities of everyday life. Examples of this are his photos of people posing with the Leaning Tower of Pisa as if they're holding it up, projects completely concerned with the stupidity of selfies titled Death by Selfie and The Selfie Stick, and Too Much Photography, which documents the never-ending flood of photos people will take when visiting touristic locations. The irony of the claim often cited that he's one of the greatest documentary photographers of all time is his self-awareness diminishes those claims to some extent when he talks about this list he made of photography cliches. The fine art and documentary photographers take great pride in thinking themselves superior to other main genres of photography, such as family snap shooters, or the amateur photographer, as personified by camera club imagery. However, after 30 or 40 years of viewing our work, I have come to the conclusion that we too are fairly predictable in what we photograph. I include myself in this, and have been very careful to try and think of new territories to explore, but recognize that very often I also indulge in this list. If you follow this channel at all, you have to be aware of the fact that I love photobooks, but I don't think anybody loves photobooks quite as much as Martin Parr. He has acquired an astonishing collection of over 12,000 photobooks that include some of the most iconic photobooks to ever be produced, and other books that cover many different subjects, places, and types of practices. All in all, this collection is incredible because it allows those who experience it to see how much variety these books have, not just in their content, but in how they are designed and manufactured. The books come in a multitude of formats from multitudes of photographers that range from amateurs to celebrated pieces, and from very limited runs to mass-produced works that are easily accessible. It is also important because the collective work shows that photobooks are significant both as works of art and as historical records. Over time, this collection has been gifted by Parr to the Tate Modern. Parr has stated, "I have always wanted my photobook collection to go to a public institution in the UK. And with the recent commitment to photography from Tate, this was a very easy decision to make." From what I understand, while many of his books have found their way into the hands of the Tate Modern, 5,000 books have been curated by Martin Parr and can be seen at the Martin Parr Foundation in Bristol. The historical significance of this collection is not lost on Parr. He has also written books along with Hannah Watson, director of Trolley Books, a brand known mostly for their photo titles, and Jerry Badger, a photography historian and critic, titled The Photobook, A History, that comes in 3 separate volumes detailing the legacy of photobooks that provides hundreds of examples of work that has been published since the beginning of photography history. The history of photography, which is subjective, has been written by academics and theoreticians, who are usually sat lazily at their desks. They don't get out there, and they don't necessarily talk to photographers. They take the institutionalized view of what the history of photography is about. So, in a sense, we think our books are a revisionist history because they bring into play people who have been overlooked, projects that have been overlooked, projects that have influenced people, projects that have been entirely forgotten, and projects that haven't had the attention they deserve. It's shifting the ground away from academia and the institutionalization of photography, and in a sense, putting it back into the hands of photographers. I think photographers should have control over their own history. If you want inspiration on creating photo projects yourself, but you don't know where to start, Martin Parr's website is a great place to draw inspiration about how you might think about photographing your world. There's over 40 projects listed on there on the archive page with a wide range of topics. Examples of this are Whitby Goth Weekend, a project that focuses on a goth festival that shows what a gathering of this subculture looks like. Another project, The Barmy Army in Gaul, involves photographing a cricket event in which Parr asked what the most interesting place to see cricket in Asia would be. Everyone he asked pointed to Sri Lanka. This project captures a group of cricket fans called the Barmy Army, who travel to support England when they have matches abroad. Auto Crazy uses photography to capture how the automotive industry in China is rapidly growing and shows no sign of stopping. I've only mentioned a few of Martin Parr's projects, but his website can offer you a deeper look at all of these and more. They highlight the fact that the projects don't have to be extremely high concept to still be thought-provoking, and that anything happening in the world around you as some kind of culture or subculture movement is worth following to see where it leads in terms of quality images that say something. We can find inspiration from Parr through the fact that he continues to keep coming up with unique projects that all revolve around the same themes he's been known to photograph throughout his career. His recent focus seems to be on Glastonbury. Parr had planned on photographing the festival prior to the pandemic, but once it was cancelled, he decided to continue with the plans and photograph it anyways. Where the thousands of festival goers would normally be stationed, he found cows, stored in dismantled attractions that would normally be part of the festival, and an appreciation of how large the grounds are and how much thought must go into practically dealing with so many festival goers. Since his initial visit, he is now attending Glastonbury twice, gathering portraits and all of the events that take place within the festival. Looking at these photos shows the process involved in sticking with the subject until you've seen the project through to completion. Overall, Parr is an incredibly inspiring documentary photographer who doesn't hold the pretentiousness of others and shows us that there are endless things to be photographed that can allow opportunities for anyone to create something truly unique and great. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep developing.